Iran is the terrorist powerhouse of the world, made all the more dangerous by the disastrous nuclear deal that did almost nothing to restrict Iran's nuclear ambitions. The Iranian government is an open enemy of the United States. It confronts U.S. Navy ships in the Persian Gulf on a near daily basis. Once America's ally, Iran now claims leadership of the global jihad, and the Ayatollah's aim is nothing less than world conquest for Islam. In a new book, The Complete Infidel's Guide to Iran, best-selling author Robert Spencer exposes the true nature of the threat Iran poses and lays out what America must do to defeat it before it's too late.
Well, Robert Spencer is joining us now to talk about the book, The Complete Infidel's Guide to Iran. And it's a pleasure to welcome you back. Good to see you.
Likewise. Thank you, sir.
What do you think's going on with Obama? Why did they sell us this bill of goods about Iran? What's the deal?
It seems as if what he's wanting to do is strengthen Iran as a force for stability in the Islamic world. It's disastrously wrongheaded because Iran, they've ordered people in the mosques every week to chant death to America every Friday. And of course, they chant death to Israel. And they're not just empty words. They are working toward destroying the United States and destroying Israel.
What about the Ayatollah Khomeini along the way? You've got an interesting insight into him. He came in and, of course, overthrew the Shah. What's the story about him?
The Ayatollah Khomeini was actually widely respected in the Carter administration, and it was Jimmy Carter's myopia about him that enabled the Islamic Republic to come to power. He thought Carter was a religious man, and he thought the Ayatollah Khomeini is another religious man like me, and I can trust him and I can deal with him. And he is the chief enabler of the Islamic Republic, Jimmy Carter.
What is, tell me what that word means. I know the Ayatollah. What it means what?
It means a sign of Allah. That
sign
he's sort of
Allah.
And that's also the word that is used for verses of the Quran, which are considered to be, of course, the perfect word of Allah. And so an Ayatollah is like a living verse of Scripture as far as they're concerned.
A grand Ayatollah, he's one level above that. Huh?
Yes. So they are considered to be practically infallible, and the judgments that they make are revered by millions of people.
What did that man say about America?
Oh, he said that America was the great Satan and that it had to be crushed. The Iranians consider, the Iranian government, that is, not the people generally, but the Iranian government considers the United States to be its foremost enemy, and they are working not by direct military confrontation, but through subversion and infiltration to bring to life their chant of death to America.
Do they have cells here in America, do you think, ready to undermine this country if they get a chance?
Yes, there's no doubt about that whatsoever. And right across the border in Mexico, Hezbollah, which is their client, is working with the drug cartels, and they are planning to come over the border and wreak havoc on a scale we haven't seen before.
This whole idea of religion of peace, why is there this myopia with our leadership in regard to identifying these people as who they are?
Well, Obama says, that if we say that Islamic terrorism has something to do with Islam, then it will empower the terrorists. And I think it's really strange that he would think, or expect us to believe, that Muslims are looking to non-Muslim political leaders to tell them what Islam is. I mean, Christians, we don't look to non-Christian political leaders to tell us what Christianity is. And so it's ridiculous on its face. But the worst part about it is that it prevents our government and law enforcement from understanding the motives and goals of the enemy, so they can't counter them properly.
They took 1,000 pages out of the FBI guide about terrorism. What is going on?
There is no mention in any FBI counterterror training of Islam or jihad. And
no mention of Islam or jihad in any of the FBI
It was
literature?
all removed in 2011 on Obama's orders. And I used to train FBI members. I would go into the FBI and to the military and tell groups about the Quran and Muhammad so they could understand the mindset of the people who have vowed to destroy us. And I was removed. All of the other trainers who were like me were removed. And any mention was scrubbed, so that now if you go into counterterror as an FBI agent, you will learn about right-wing extremists. You will not learn about Islam and jihad.
The whole deal about this religion of peace thing, what is it with ISIS? ISIS is is not an aberrant sect. ISIS is the heart core of Islamic teaching, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, yes. I mean, they call themselves, the name that they call themselves is not ISIS, but the Islamic State. And they consider themselves to be the quintessential and perfect expression of Islam as the caliphate, the sole government to which Muslims owe allegiance. And so everything they do is scrupulously based on the Quran and Muhammad.
So we say, well, they've hijacked a great religion. That's baloney, isn't it?
It's total baloney, absolutely.
They've followed in exactly what...
Absolutely, they follow it carefully. Everything ISIS does, the beheadings, the subjugation of Christians, even the sex slavery of the non-Muslim girls, it's all in the Quran and in the example of Muhammad.
All of it?
All of it.
Well, why do we, if somebody speaks out, oh, they're racist and bigoted and so forth, why is this thing settled across the United States where we will not identify our enemy? We talked about the Nazis in World War II. We didn't hesitate to say the Nazis are our enemy, the fascists are our enemy.
Well, now the enemy has used the Nazi tactics and used them very effectively. They remember the big lie. Yeah. And if you just keep repeating the big lie, that's what Goebbels said, people will start to believe it. And that's what's happened to us now. They keep telling us that Islam is a religion of peace and anybody who thinks otherwise is racist and bigoted and Islamophobic. And they keep repeating this. They have to keep repeating it because it's such transparent nonsense. But they've repeated it so much that a large number of Americans has accepted it.
Transparent nonsense, that's what they're buying in. Talk about, the role of women. Hillary Clinton said, I'm a champion of women. You had some rather revealing things in here. How do these people regard women at the core of Islam and in Iran, of course?
In Iran, if you're a woman and your hair is not covered properly, then you're liable to get arrested. And the subjugation of women is institutionalized in Islamic law, which Iran very scrupulously follows, is the same way that the Islamic State does, although Iran is Shiite and the Islamic State is Sunni. And so women they can't even go out of the house without a male guardian, without permission. In many cases, they cannot be educated. Of course, polygamy dehumanizes women and destroys the whole idea of marriage. And even the worst part is that the Quran says to beat a disobedient woman. And so spousal abuse is rampant in Iran and elsewhere in the Islamic world.
They beat wives, and that's part of the religious teaching?
Yes, and it's not considered anything wrong. It's in the Quran.
What about that business about they take a prostitute, they're apparently sex-driven, and yet they've got a cover-up for that. What do they do? Iran
has an idea, it's in Shiite Islam, and Iran is Shiite, that is called temporary marriage. And you marry somebody, it's just like a real marriage, but it's got a deadline. You marry somebody for an hour or for a weekend or something like that. And so essentially it's prostitution, but it's under the fig leaf of morality because you're married.
And that's part of the religious belief?
Yes, it is. The Shiites base that on their understanding of a verse of the Quran as well.
Well, also, you've got something rather telling it here about the Ayatollah Khomeini. He said that a young girl shouldn't begin to bleed in your house. So they wanted her married at 9, 10, 11?
Yes. Muhammad married a 6-year-old girl, consummated the marriage when she was 9 and he was 54. Mm-hmm. And so Muhammad is the supreme example of conduct according to the Quran. And so with the Ayatollah Khomeini, one of the first things he did when he took power in Iran in 1979 was lower the legal age of marriage for women to 9. And he recommended, as you quoted him, he recommended that girls before they begin puberty should be married off.
So you would marry a 9-year-old before she reaches puberty? That was the deal?
That's the idea. Because Muhammad did it, it must be good.
That's horrible.
Yes, it is.
I mean, we have names for that. It's against the law here in America. Yes. Why don't people bring this stuff out?
Well, it's this whole big lie of multiculturalism, that all cultures are equal and good, and so we can't question that. It's their culture. If we had said that about Nazi Germany, then we might all be speaking German today.
Yeah. Well, what do you recommend America does in this struggle that we're facing?
Well, we have to recognize the Islamic Republic of Iran has been at war with the United States since 1979. Mm-hmm. We shouldn't be making deals with them. We should restore the sanctions. We should make it clear that their global terrorist adventurism is not going to be tolerated, mm-hmm. and make it clear that their nuclear adventurism is not going to be tolerated. A strong president can and should do that.
Well, you got that little mosquito boats up threatening our naval vessels in the Persian Gulf. why can't we shoot them?
Well, we can and probably should, because these are acts of war. But Obama doesn't want to recognize that Iran is essentially at war with the United States. He wants to pretend that he's brought peace with his nuclear deal, so he keeps on ignoring these repeated provocations.
Do you think the American people are buying those lies? I mean, this is horrible. What you talk about, it's horrible.
A lot of people are, because we are being lied to so systematically and repeatedly, you know?
Yeah.
But a lot of people aren't. People are waking up. And I think that the very presidency of Donald Trump, this is not an endorsement, but just the fact that a political outsider has gone so far is an indication that people are fed up with the political insiders and all the lies that they've been telling us.
How many executions in Iran a year?
Oh, hundreds and hundreds. They lead the world in executions.
They lead the world.
Yes, they do. Every year they have more executions than anywhere else because they're following Islamic law, which mandates death for so many people.
Do they have that business of cutting the hands off of thieves and that sort of thing?
Oh, yes. All that's in the Quran, and so Iran does it.
The alternate, you cut off your foot on one hand and your hand on the other side.
Yes, that's if you are waging war against Allah and His Messenger, which is a very vague charge, but Iran uses it a lot. And the Quran says, yes, you cut off a hand and foot on opposite sides.
But that's in there.
It's in the Quran, chapter 5, verse 33.
But that is an integral part of the Islamic belief, right?
Yes, it is. If it's in the Quran, it cannot be questioned, and Muslims wouldn't dare question.
All right, well, somebody comes to Islam and is a true believer, decides, hey, this is baloney, I'm going to become a Christian. What happens to him?
Well, Muhammad said, if anybody changes his religion, kill him. And so he may not be killed if nobody is around to do it, but he is under a death sentence for the rest of his life.
Well, they have people now that are being accused of blaspheming the prophet. They say one word and they want to stone them to death. I mean, you've got people being held in Pakistan for just that.
Yeah, Pakistan is terrible for abusing Christians with its blasphemy laws. And as a matter of fact, there was a politician who was advocating for repeal of the blasphemy laws in Pakistan, and he was shot dead, and his killer became a hero, and a mosque was named after him.
Oh, Robert, I'm appalled. I just sit here and I think, dear Lord, what has happened to America when we let this stuff go on? I mean, do you think we're going to have a revival? You think it's not going to happen with one more politician, will it? Or maybe?
Oh, no. This is not a political war. This is a spiritual war. And we're not going to be able to fight it properly until there's widespread renewal in the United States. But more and more people are waking up. The worse things get, paradoxically, the better things get, because people are waking up.
Well, Robert, I appreciate this book. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a complete info guide to Iran. It's very, very comprehensive. There's some very interesting things in here. I've just pointed out some of the highlights, and it's incredible. It's available wherever books are sold. And Robert Spencer has done a great job in bringing this to us. And I mean, I'm speechless. I really am speechless. It takes your breath away to see the Americans being as duped as they are, and a president who's buying this lie. By the way, he just appointed a Muslim to the federal court, as I understand.
Yes, he did. And this is another thing. This guy may be perfectly honest and perfectly sound, but the problem is when the president doesn't even admit that there is a jihad threat, he's just opened the door now to appointing people who are not properly vetted and who may have allegiance to Islamic law over American law.
Yeah. Thank you, Robert. Robert Spencer. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Complete Infidel's Guide to Iran.